Thank you, Sarah Jane. I have to say, though, this was not my idea. This was the idea of the young people of Birmingham, really. We got this idea to begin with because we started talking to our population when we were just set up as a clinical commissioning group. And as we've read in the literature, Birmingham's a very young city. And lots of young people got involved in our consultations, and we put on a young person's question time. And mental health issues and mental health services was the number one issue for those young people. So we prioritised that. So that's where the idea came from. I have been, I suppose, the executive sponsor for the project. I'm the accountable officer for Birmingham South Central Clinical Commissioning Group. But all the clinical commissioning groups in Birmingham, so Cross City and Sandwell and West Birmingham, are part of the project, as is Birmingham City Council. So it's been a joint effort from commissioners to get to where we are today. And as Sarah Jane said, it's just really exciting. I can't tell you how excited I am that we're at this point now of sort of starting to launch the new service. So yes, so that's where we started, from hearing the voices of our children and young adults. And there is a commissioner story behind it. You know, commissioning is quite hard work. There's a lot of decommissioning to do. A lot of specification writing, procurements, all those sorts of activities. But in some ways they're sort of behind us now, and we're moving on into mobilisation and seeing the new service coming into life, really, which is the most exciting bit. As commissioners, we'll be involved as we go forward, and we'll be working closely with Forward Thinking Birmingham and helping them to develop it, and with young people and children and young adults to make sure that what they wanted is genuinely being represented in what we're commissioning and what Forward Thinking Birmingham are providing. So we've just got a bit of a pathway here which comes up bit by bit. I'll put it all on before we go any further. There we are. So yes, so it started with the young people's question time. I think the other key motivator for us as commissioners was this gap in services for 16 to 18-year-olds. In Birmingham, it seems that mental health services have been commissioning bits and pieces over the years, many years. And there was a gap in the middle between for 16 to 18-year-olds. And then from the Clark programme that runs, it's a research programme, nationally funded, there was some work done on mental health by that programme, and they found that this gap was a real problem because it covered the peak incidence of mental illness and mental health problems amongst young people, and young people who had become ill before then were actually really disadvantaged by that gap, and their outcomes were quite poor compared to other places where there were services in that area. So, and then we talked to young people, we went out, we talked to young people, we talked to old people, we talked to everybody, we did a full 12-week consultation, and we heard a very powerful message. If you include tweets and retweets, there were 35,000 responses to the consultation, which is the biggest response I think I've ever had. And this is the first consultation that I've been involved in where the response has been mainly on social media. But there was an overwhelming, yes, something must be done, services can't be as they are, not just from young people, but from everybody. So I think we need services that recognise the warning signs. We've talked about this. Half of all mental health illnesses begin by 14 years, and most of the rest have begun by 24 years. And yet I've been saying to people before now that young people's mental health services have been, I feel, the Cinderella of the Cinderella services, and that just isn't acceptable. You know, from what we've heard and what we know can be done, there's a good evidence base that intervention in these years really makes a difference. So, you know, some people become burdened by their mental ill health, and it follows them their whole life long, when that perhaps wasn't necessary if they'd had opportunities to have treatment and intervention at an early stage. And for conditions that are lifelong, like for example ADHD or autism, people deserve a support that is stronger, not weaker, during those very difficult times in the late teens when big decisions are having to be made, aren't they? Like, you know, sort of schools and colleges and work and university and relationships. So they need more support than not as it was. Oh, flashing traffic lights. So we did, this is just a bit of a word cloud really, which highlighted some of the words, the key words that came out of the consultation. I shall have to put my glasses on to read them. Stigma was one. People felt that it was very stigmatised to be a young person with a mental ill health problem. And we've worked really hard ourselves as clinical commissioning groups and Forward Thinking Birmingham too now coming in to completely overcome that. It is pretty normal to have mental health issues as a young person, and support is freely available. Part of the specification that we wanted was easy access, no wrong door, not being told, well, you shouldn't have come here, you should have gone there, but saying you've come here, you're welcome, how can we help you? And that's all built into the new service. People wanted options about treatment as well. They didn't want to be told, well, this is the treatment that we've got for you, you know, have it, whether it suits you or not. They wanted different options. So we've got standard NHS type options. There are more broad-based therapies. There's opportunities for face-to-face interactions with people who can help you, and there'll be opportunities on social media and using digital tools, etc. And we heard a great deal of difference in the consultation from people, and we often think of young people, they like their social media, don't they? But actually, many young people were saying, actually, I would really just like to talk to somebody, you know, who isn't my family, who I can share my problems with and reflect a bit. So there will be all those things in the new service. And again, transition, that was the big thing, transition, this bit about transition between 16 and 18 and the no services and the fact that people didn't feel that adult services were appropriate for them at the age of 18. And one of the things we heard was, well, why can't it just be like it was, you know, when I was a child, when my mum and dad could come in with me, I need their support. And of course, when they're 18, that wasn't happening. Why does it have to wait from 16 to 18 to get a service? And people were dropping out of the service. So that transition was a major point of feedback that we had. So again, we very carefully built into the specification about transition. So there will be transition at 25 now. When people reach 25, they'll be moving to adult services if they still need services, because evidence suggests many of them won't if the service is delivered as we want it to be. But that most evidence suggests that people are willing and happy to move on to adult services by then. And that is an innovation of this service, really, is that I think we are the first people in the country to be commissioning a full 0 to 25 service. The other thing about 25 is it fits in with the health and care plans that we're obliged to commission for vulnerable children with local authorities. It fits in with learning disabilities and looked after children responsibilities now, which go up to 25. So this is how we want young people to be feeling. This is what they told us they wanted to feel when they're having a service, and afterwards when they've recovered or moved on from the service, to feel much more positive about things. And as commissioners, we feel very confident that in Forward Thinking Birmingham, so we've been through a very rigorous procurement process. It took us 2 years from start to finish, really, to do it all in a rigorous and proper manner. I'm very confident that Forward Thinking Birmingham are the consortium to take this forward. And more importantly than that, young people were very confident as well, because we did involve our experts by experience in designing the specification and going through the whole procurement process with us. We offered them training and support to participate in that, and they evaluated the tender in their own way, in their own group, using the same questions as everybody else and some new ones, and they came up with Forward Thinking Birmingham as their preferred provider. We do intend to include the experts by experience in our evaluation as commissioners going forward, and Forward Thinking Birmingham will include them in their design of their services as well. So there's plenty of opportunities if you would like to be an expert by experience, and if you would like to do that, then if you're a young person yourself or someone with some experience or someone, a family member of a young person, then please feel free to email that email address or speak to any of us today, and we'd be very pleased to have you. Now, I've got to hand over now, I think, to Safina. I first met Safina when we were doing the consultation, actually, I think, wasn't it, Safina? And Safina's story is very powerful, actually, and Safina, as Sarah Jane said, is a campaigner for young people's mental health issues. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Safina. Thank you.